Hello, Heathens.
Welcome back.
We're finally back.
We're finally back. Our life is lifing.
Yeah, for real. You know, I was telling Nicole this the other day. One of my clients listens to like almost every episode, and she made me feel really good about like how we explained at the beginning of the season we're gonna just kind of like roll with life a little bit more this year and not hold ourselves to these self-imposed
High,
standards of
you're right. High
very
standards.
high. Yeah.
We're gonna record every day.
We're recording no matter what. Life is not allowed to happen outside of recording.
Mm-mm.
So life is life and uh tell them where you went.
Oh, I went to the Keys. Marathon Key is my most favorite place because it's very islandy.
Yeah. And they got to hold nurse sharks and they did a stingray thing. And I'm like, that's so cool.
It was cool. We rented a house on a canal. Um, And it was so funny because I've deemed this trip as like team building. So we had a moment where like Tren had dropped her phone into the canal. And I was so proud of us because like this is a very frustrating, like vacation is supposed to be relaxing, right? But it ends up being kind of stressy, messy, a little bit like frustration and stuff like that, right? Travel and like not knowing where you're going and I don't know, just stuff like that that adds up. And we like banded together. Each of us played our part. Nobody like ran off crying. Nobody like yelled at each other. Nobody like got unhinged. There were little bits and nips and stuff, but like nothing that like would have been so dramatic, right?
Yeah.
And I'm telling
Because
you, we tried to get this phone for like 2, 3 hours. We're not talking like it was 15 minutes. It was 2, 3 hours.
what's cool about this too is like you all had to go through this during Mercury retrograde, which we all know just makes communication a little bit fucky, to say the
Mm-hmm.
least.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an electronic that was in the water for 2 to 3 hours. And it's they obviously they got it. They got the phone, but like it still worked. That's what's crazy.
This phone, okay, so I feel like this was a very much a divine intervention or test or whatever, a bonding moment. And like we literally uh when we got the phone out of it, it never had turned off. It never like to this day, and it's been about a week, it never acted like anything happened to it. And we're talking like this is salt water. And
Right.
the water was probably about 4 to 5 feet, somewhere around there, like depth wise. And like it never faltered once. And we did the normal things, like we got it out, we put it in fresh water then for a little while, and then we took it out and dried it. And then I ended up putting it in the sun at some point for just a little bit because I just figured we've got the Florida sun. Like, it's your guides going like, no, no, go let it sunbathe for a minute. And I'm like, all right, because you don't want to get too hot and get it overheated either. So like it was but it was crazy because I'm like, and it's so funny to me because like the response I get, they're like, was it an iPhone? And I was like, nope, it was a Samsung.
Yeah, what interesting question.
Yeah.
Is it because they think iPhone is going to do better in being submerged in water than Samsung? Interesting.
Yeah, that like it's superior somehow, which both of them are the same, right? They're the same phone. They
That's what
just
I was gonna
have,
say.
right? Like,
They're
it
same,
just
same, but
kills me.
different. They look this,
Right.
they just look different, but like it's a phone.
It literally does the same thing. It's just like, it's so funny to me because even like cars right now, if you look out into a sea of parking lot, like they're the same cars. The Broncos look like Jeeps, the Jeeps look like Broncos. Like, it's like, it doesn't even matter the brand of it. It literally is the same car. It looks the same.
I would
I'm
agree.
like, good Lord.
It's like a car is a car, a phone's a phone. Also, we're not mentioning how brave Nicole was because she had to get over her fear because Mama had to jump in and get that damn thing. She had to jump into that canal where they had just seen manatees. There's
Good
stuff in the water. It's not like there's
Lord.
nothing in the water. There's stuff
Hmm.
in it, salt water. And that means that the manatees are getting there. Everything else can get there too if they wanted to. So it's like Mama had to jump in to get that phone
Oh my
and had to
God.
be brave because I'm telling you right now, I don't think I
So
could have done that.
scary.
I would have been
It
like,
was so
ooh.
scary. I didn't realize how scary it would be. But I was like, and I talk a big game. Don't get me wrong. I know myself. Like I talk a big game. Like, but like I am fear, like, because I know everything. So like, I mean, I don't, but like, I'm like sharks, alligators, and crocodiles. Those are just the three top predators that I can know of, right? We're not talking about jellyfish or like whatever fuckery little fish that could like bite like barracuda or whatever. Sharp rocks. Like I
But
um
the funny thing
mermaids.
is like you fucking trained for this though. When if you guys know us and you guys know Nicole, we all know what Nicole does every morning. It has been
Mhm.
doing for every morning for a long time. She was training for this moment.
It was so hard to make that first step in the water. I mean, it took me a good 15, 20 minutes to do the courage. And I was like, you know, because my husband was like, no, don't do it. And I was like, no, I got to get in the water. And I'm all right. I got my goggles on. I got my swimsuit on. Like, I got my shoes on. Like, I'm ready. Belly first, like on the dock, like, gonna get in like an alligator. And I was like, and I was like, no, I'm gonna do it. He's like, no, don't do it. And I was like, I go, what's the worst that can happen? Of course, I already know. I have the list, right? I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? And he's like, don't do it. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I was like, I literally have been training my whole life for this moment. Literally. And then Tren like is turns into my biggest cheerleader. She's like, you can do this. You literally have been training your whole life for this. Like you can do this. Like what we were just talking about getting in anyway. We just asked the neighbor about like would it be dangerous for us to swim in it? I just had like text the house to make sure like could we get in? Could we not get in? Like, did you see sharks? Like, we've already established that it was pretty safe to get in.
Mm.
So we've even done the groundwork before this even happened. Ugh. So then I'm like, "Ah." um, so once I get in, is only the first step because it's even scarier once you're in to do things and move. I was frozen with fear. I'm latched onto the like dock with my feet behind me because I can't stir up the sediment because it's going to make the visibility bad. So I'm here like hanging like a fucking bat on the dock and I couldn't move.
It's like, okay, buddy, you gonna get it? And you're like, I need a minute.
I didn't
Another minute.
even I can't move. So the best thing was is that my husband literally we had this pole and he's like in his brain, he's like, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? Because I'm already in. So at this point, like, move forward, right?
Yeah.
So he thinks, he's like, all right, I'm gonna put the pole. in the water to the ground where I think the phone is. And then I was like, okay. And it was really easy at that point because then I wasn't thrashing then. I could use the pole as anchorage and leverage to reach in. So there was also this level of muck and sediment that was kind of like not gooey, but like I describe it as like cake batter with too much water in it. That's what it kind of looked like. So, but it was like heavier than the water, so that's where it was like silt and all this stuff. So I grabbed, literally took 5 seconds, literally took 5 seconds. Once we did all this and the universe like aligned and clicked into place, I grabbed the pole. I thrust my hand into the void. Like hand was gone, right?
Okay.
Like into the void. Felt the phone like I was in a pocket realm, brought it out and was like, I have it.
You said, throw the phone, swim, 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 get me out of here.
Yeah, that was the other thing is like the ladder where I was gonna get out, which the neighbor let us use, thank God. Because I didn't know how else I was getting out. There was no, everything was a dock. There was no like shore to climb up on. So then I have to take the trek of like swimming open water. And I had to swim to that and like climb up and then everything was fine, right? Like it was, but it was like, it was such a moment of like it's like changing, that changing moment of like all of us work together. We achieved the ultimate goal. We got the phone. We like everything was right as rain after that. And it was just so great, like mentally and spiritually for me that, and I'm sure for the others, like it was just one of those moments that was like, yeah, it happened. And yeah, we could dwell on the moment that it happened. But like to see the moments of like the family working together to achieve an ultimate goal and actually achieving the goal was so magical and so purposeful for me that I was like just so awed by like timing and like events and like us like using the tools that we have now like put into place and into our life. I don't know, like I just so overwhelmed and awed and realize like these little moments that we take as bad and let them overwhelm us. That if you really like push through it and sit and center yourself and like go through it, like even if it doesn't work out, like you given yourself some empowerment to like not be a victim to it and really go through it, right? Like it was just like one of those things that I'm still overwhelmed and blessed, but like I hate that. But like, but awesome. It was
But it,
awesome.
yeah, it's
Right.
like it's true because like you said, that could have been a very quickly frustrating and annoying situation where frustrations get high, and then now all of a sudden we're all fighting over
Right.
something as
Right.
not serious as, well, you dropped your phone in. I don't know. We could either get it or try to see if it works, and it's either gonna work or it's not. Or we're not
Right.
gonna find it. It is what it is.
Right. Because we could have left it, right? Like that was a choice. Like we could have left it and that would have been fine. Like, uh, and went to the next day and bought a phone. Like that wouldn't have been horrible. I mean, maybe not it has its own things that we would have to deal with.
Right.
But like, I don't know. It was just like, it was really cool. This whole year has been really cool. It's been not easy. I don't want to say it's been easy,
Here, here.
right? Like there's been challenges. There's been like, but the weird thing is that I can now see, and this could be for anything that you put time and dedication into, right? But I'm going to use ritual magic because that's what I've been using, right? So I realized just recently that I started ritual magic in 2021. Never did anything besides that, but 2021. So this is technically what, my third year? Starting at my fourth year, really, right?
Yeah.
So 21, 22, 23, 24. So I've been doing ritual magic heavily for the past, this is my fourth year. So I've done 3 full years of it, right? The beginning of the year, I was kind of getting down on myself because like I wasn't doing ritual magic as much, but I'm starting to really trust my intuition and what my body feels. And they would give me this like, well, you're kind of doing this because you're trying to implement all the magic that you put into the ether and bringing it into the material world. So it's almost like I have to kind of stop manifesting thought wise and pull that energy that I've stored up into the ether and bring it into the material world.
Mm.
This is all theory at this point because I don't have enough data to like tell you that this is exactly what it is. This is like real time, like me processing it, right? Um, but that's kind of where like I was like, okay, no, no, I'm trusting. I'm not gonna feel bad because I feel like I'm failing because I'm not doing ritual magic every day. Because I still am, I never not go a day without either studying or researching magic in general, right? So I'm never not tapped into it.
Mhm.
Um, but again, we hold ourselves to high standards that we think that this is where I'm supposed to be when this is okay too. This is the same. This isn't like this. It's
Right.
like this, right?
Right.
Um, yeah. So that's basically been my first like 3, 4 months of as I get deeper into it, it's more validating um that this year is just completely different. And really the triggering point was that entity that I had attached to me in December. That
Mm.
really was the turning point. And it was in December. So we're closing out a year, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, here we go. But I can tell you now that if you put in the time and dedication, you do see it might not be right away. It might be 3 years before you see proof.
Yeah. And like you don't have to seek validation because you can see it and feel it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Even the point of like doing something that you did again, but you're like, and I think you helped me with this, is like, but you're not the same person. Like spending too much money on this vacation, right? Scares me because it could put me in a really bad place, right? So then I'm like, but then I'm not the same person. I've
Right.
have paid off my credit card. I am responsible. I am an adult. I can do this. Like, right? Like instead of being like, oh my God, this is gonna be bad and I'm gonna like be ruined by it and people are gonna know that I'm a failure and like all that stuff that we like tell ourselves to like no. And I think that we'll go back to the Court of Thorns and Roses. I think reading that has really helped me solidify that in my brain, in my subconscious of like how you're so broken and then how you build yourself back together and work your way through that like she was just at the Weaver's cottage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that moment of like, no, I'm not a mouse. I'm a wolf. I'm not a mouse. I'm a wolf. Like, I will not be like that anymore. I will not be a victim to my circumstances. I will not be like. So it's kind of interesting how it's all kind of playing together and weaving itself into my tapestry of life or whatever, right?
Yeah. One of my clients, you made me think about what her and her husband say when there's like that like adult moment of like, you can do it, but you have to remind myself is that they'll say to each other, I'm a grown ass woman.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he'll look at her and he'll go, you're a grown ass woman. And they're like, it like makes them laugh because it's like, it helps get out of like that fear or like that stress. And it's like, no, I'm a grown ass woman.
Right,
And I'm like, that little bit has helped me because sometimes I'll be like, I'm a grown ass boss ass woman. I can do this.
right, right.
And then I'm like, yeah, I can. It's kind of that simple.
Absolutely. Well, even just saying, like, I've trained my whole life for this. Like, literally, every minute of my every moment of my life has trained me for this moment right here in front of me right now. Right?
If the swimmer's not the one swimming in the canal to get the phone, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? She's hands down the best swimmer in the group. Well, so why, yeah.
Well, oh my God, I just had a huge moment. So, like, literally, do you know how you have the angel and the devil on your shoulder?
Yeah.
So I got Rob, who's a Sagittarius, who's ruled by Jupiter on one shoulder, right? I have Trinity, who's an Aries and ruled by Mars on the other shoulder. I got one going, no, don't do it. No, don't do it. Be safe. Like you. And then I got the other one going, no, you could do this. You've trained your whole life for this. Like, what a crazy, like, coincidence of, like, good Lord.
Fuck yeah. I see that's where I'm with the Aries.
Right, right.
The scales over here are balanced in the way of she's a swimmer. It says she trains every morning for this. If anybody's going to be like, oh my God, there's a crack, get out of there. Who's going to be the fastest swimmer? Probably the swimmer.
Oh, well, at that point, I can't swim. You can't be a victim. You have to turn and face that bullshit,
That's fair. That's
especially in the
fair.
water, right? Like, you would literally have to turn around and, like, oh my God, even saying this seems fucking ridiculous. By the way, I know how ridiculous I sound right now, but like, you can't run. You can't run. You have to stand or swim or float, whatever you're doing. I don't
Yep.
know. It's fine.
Okay, should we get into today's episode?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is one of my favorite myths, legends, stories, and there's plenty of documentaries on like discovery, um, a lot of some of the ghost paranormal investigations, a lot of them have like been at the Bell Witch and has went to the cave and went to they've re-erected the house and done EVP sessions and like so there's on this one topic there is a good fair amount of stories and legends and people telling their uh accounts.
Hmm. What's crazy about this one that is very notable is that no one has like really solved this yet. It's all just theorized. There's no proof in the pudding of exactly what this was. So there's all theories around this. So the Bell Witch haunting centers around the John Bell family of Red River, Tennessee, that's now known as Adams, Tennessee. And this happened between like 1817 and 1821. And there's more accounts after, but this is like where the main story had occurred during that
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
And there was like a lawyer turned parapsychologist called Dr. Neandorf Fodor. It's a fun name.
That is.
Who called the legend one of America's greatest ghost stories. And I'm like, that's fair. It's really good because it's there's a lot of theories around this. So in the early 1800s, John Bell moved his family from North Carolina to the Red River Bottomland in Robertson County, Tennessee. And he started off buying some land and a large house. And over the next several years, he acquired more land and increased his holdings to 328 acres.
Wow. That's wild.
I had to look up like what that kind of means because like 328 acres, like sure, I think I know what that means, but like how big is that? And it was like kind of wild to think about how big that is because it's a massive amount of land that he ended
Well,
up
yeah, because how many
holding.
football fields is that?
Oh, that's a good question. How many football fields?
So they moved in 1814 or 1804 is when he moved from North Carolina to Tennessee.
Hmm. It's 14 and a half football fields.
Good Lord.
I can't even really put that in my mind of how big that is.
No, that is wild. It's massive.
Okay, for reference, for those of you that know U of M and know downtown Ann Arbor sits at 271 acres.
Wow.
And he had more
He had more than that.
than
That is wild. That's so big.
like U of M sits on 42 acres, like the college.
Even that's crazy.
That's,
Like,
I don't even think that's a quarter of what he owned.
right. It's not
That's what's wild.
crazy.
Um, so while he was down there, he became an elder of the Red Baptist Church.
Hmm.
And I couldn't find how many kids they have, but they did have three more kids once they moved to Tennessee. John and his wife Lucy Bell. And did you find how many kids he had in a total?
Not in total, because I have a list of just the key players. So I wonder if I could, I'll ask Chad.
Yeah, ask Chet.
9, at least.
Wow. Wow. Lots of kids.
Yeah, they had at least 9. Historic record is very slight. There's a lot of, because I think because it was like rural area, there's not a lot of documentation about this either.
Ugh.
Um, they kept a lot of things down because I have a lot of um because we know with all that land came a lot of disputes with it.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of tension and fight. And you know it must have been bad because not only is it recorded, but he also got kicked out of the church for it.
Hmm.
So those two things I feel are like it must have been pretty heated.
Well, and not to mention that during this time they also had slaves. Like it was like basically a
Yes.
plantation.
Right.
Um, we all know how that goes, so.
Well, that was the other thing I noticed. So when I was looking up key players, it was very interesting to me because one of the key players is a slave named Dean. Now, I have the names of the people that are involved. They all have last names, family names. They all have like John Bell, Lucy Bell, Betsy Bell, um, Josh Gardner, Richard Powell. Like they all have last names. Dean, who clearly was important enough to mention and have a name. It's not just slave, but then like no surname.
Mhm.
There was no mention, and there was no mention of any, like they said that they owned. many slaves, but they didn't say A, necessarily how much, and B, uh, that there were any other. There's no mention of any other slaves. So it's interesting to see history even in this aspect of like how much they've omitted from the books, right?
Right. Yeah, and it's like crazy because when you think about it, like they had 328 acres worth of land to take care of too. So it had to
Right.
have been
Right.
a substantially large amount of people living on this land to help take care of it or be forced to take care of it, whatever you'd prefer to say at that point. But the story goes that one day in 1817, John was inspecting his cornfield when he encountered a strange-looking animal sitting in the middle of a corn row. The animal had been described to have the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit, and he shot at it several times, but then the animal vanished. And this was like kind of the beginning of,
Well, there's two counters with that too, because Dean was the one who like in some reports, Dean was the one who saw it. So, and I've seen
mm,
in different stories, it's either John Bell has shot at it, and then up here it's like Dean had seen it, and that's why.
yeah, I think it's different because of course, like again, they didn't have the story can't be verbatim because obviously none of us were there. One and two, we didn't have, they didn't, the story was passed down like family member to family member, like generation to generation until finally somebody wrote it down.
Right, right. And that we all know how the game of telephone works.
Literally.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the story I have too is after that, that evening is when things started happening. Was the
Hmm.
family began hearing beating sounds on the outside walls of their long home, and the mysterious sounds just continued to increase with frequency and force that night. And they would like run outside. John and the boys would run outside, and they'd be checking the house out, and they would always come back empty-handed and not know what the hell was going on.
Hmm.
And then in the weeks that followed, the kids would wake up complaining that rats were gnawing at their bedpost, which I find very, very funny because like how do you I mean you could hear rats like their little like smacking of lips, but it's crazy that they think rats are gnawing at their bedposts. Like that would have to, you're waking up to that. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, granted now they don't have the technology we have where we constantly have noise going, but interesting. But then they would
Hmm.
later on they would complain of having their bed covers pulled from them and their pillows tossed on the floor at night too.
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, that's freaky. I'd be
It,
freaking out.
well, yeah, I mean, all that is freaky. Because, like, and so at this time, too, there was a big movement for religion and the supernatural to, like, it was getting a new revival. So they started believing heavily, especially with misfortune and anything that was bad that happened to you or your family. It was always blamed on like the supernatural demons and all that kind of stuff. They needed a villain in their story for like,
Witches per se.
right. So any misfortune or anything was always blamed on either spiritual mishap or spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
Um, Also, at this time, which helps my theory, is that this is when this all started when um, Betsy Bell was starting to get engaged to Josh Gardner, or they started courting.
Hmm.
And my theory is, which we'll go into later, is that there was a magician involved.
Hmm.
So because I had to know, like, that's why I asked what was happening at the same time that this started. Like, what was the, if we can find out, what seems to be the catalyst? Because there had to be something. The other thing is that we thought about was poltergeist activity because she was 13, 12, 4, 13. And if she is being abused or sexually abused or mentally abused, and she's under extreme pressure, we know that this noisy ghost comes out of like this teenage hormonal energy kind of thing, right? Like,
Mhm.
so that was the other angle that I was trying to like see about.
Yeah. Yeah, because like at this time, as that started happening, they started all of the bells in the family started hearing faint whispering, whispering voices, which they were at the time they were too weak to understand, but they sounded like a feeble woman singing hymns. And then it really started ramping up when the youngest daughter, Betsy Bell, began experiencing like brutal encounters with this invisible entity. It would pull her hair, slap her, often leaving welts and hard prints on her face. And at the time, John was still with the church and had sworn his family to secrecy. But it finally escalated to the point that his quote unquote family trouble, he shared it with his closest friend and neighbors, James Johnson. And then James Johnson and his wife ended up staying the night at their house because they were like, there's no way they're experiencing all this. And as they started to sleep, they began to experience things that Betsy had been experiencing. John got slapped in the face and his covers yanked off of him, and he sprang out of bed. And this is from the website for the Bell Witch House, that
Hmm.
he sprang out of bed exclaiming, "In the name of the Lord, who are you and what do you want?" And the entity didn't respond, and the rest of the night was peaceful. So they were like, basically, like that took care of it. Like, the neighbors like, that's it, that's fine. Like, he took
I
care of it.
have exercised this house.
Yes. But as time went on, the entity's voice started strengthening and became loud and unmistakable. And they knew it was the entity because it was her voice. It would sing hymns and quote scriptures over time, and it would carry on like intellectual conversations and would like quote sermons that happened by different preachers at the same
Hmm.
time from separate parts. It would quote like sermons word for word. Like it
Hmm.
had been at
Yeah.
both churches or sermons at the same time. We have a guest.
Did you want to talk about the Bell Witch? What were your thoughts?
So,
Oh.
also, I found this interesting because you guys know we've stayed in New Orleans and we stayed at the Andrew Jackson Hotel.
Hmm.
The phenomenon started spreading enough for General Andrew Jackson to,
Allegedly.
yes, well, everything's allegedly.
Right, well, that's fair.
Right. The whole thing's allegedly. Like, I mean, do I doubt that they experienced this? No, but the experiences are, again, game of telephone, as Nicole said, because that's a good way to say
Hmm.
it. So, like, this is on the Bell Witch website, which I'm sure they probably tell it. What I'm imagining is this is probably how the story goes when you're there. They probably tell stuff like this because, like, I would find this interesting if Andrew Jackson actually did go there and now his hotel's haunted. But anyways. Apparently, he became interested in the Bell Witch because he had, word was spreading so much about this. And in 1819, Jackson heard about the disturbances and decided to pay a visit and investigate himself. And as Jackson and his company approached the property, the wagon jolted to a sudden stop and it became stuck on some muddy creek bed, and the horses were unable to pull it. And at least that's what the men thought, right? Well, after trying to get the wagon free, Jackson claimed it must be the Bell Witch, and then the disembodied female voice told Jackson that they could proceed and that she would see them later again that night. Like she wanted to be acknowledged, and until she was like, "You're not coming on the land."
Right, right.
So then they proceeded across the property. Um, so while they're there, Jackson's inside, some of his men are inside, some of his men are outside, right? Well, one of the guys that was in there with him, again, this is all hearsay. So if it did happen, this is fucking funny.
Uh-huh.
One of the men claimed to be a witch tamer, and he had a silver bullet in his gun.
Oh, witch tamer?
Tamer. Yes,
Okay.
and he had a silver bullet in his gun, and that's why. He wasn't scared. He claimed he wasn't scared of the witch, and the witch was scared of him because of that silver bullet. And that's why they haven't experienced anything, because they hadn't experienced anything for several hours being in the house. And they were all thinking they were going to get there and shit was just going to be fucking floating in the corner and thrown around the house, apparently. And they were just going to be hearing voices left and right. But
Hmm.
this guy claimed all this stuff, right? Well, shortly after claiming that, the man screamed, began jerking his body in several different directions, complaining that he was being stuck with pins and beaten severely. And then he got a strong kick to his behind and was sent flying out the front door. And then that's when the entity spoke up and announced that there was yet another fraud in Jackson's party and that she would identify him the following evening.
Wow.
So, if that did happen, she's fucking funny. She's also like, you have a fraud in your fucking party, and I'm gonna point it out to you, Jackson.
Well, and
Proof
it's
I'm real.
interesting. Well, that's the thing is like I think they wouldn't necessarily want this like documented in his story because they did leave and they wasn't like they and he's a general and a president, like he would never not like right.
Hmm.
But you do raise an interesting point that his hotel just happens to be haunted.
One of the most
Yeah.
haunted places I've ever stayed at in my life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Undeniably haunted. I'm like, if this is true, and his hotel, what were you doing, Andrew Jackson? I'm curious about you now, dog, because if you really were a part of this and your hotel, what are you doing? What were you
Right.
doing?
I have questions.
I have questions, I have thoughts, I have concerns. So to finish that story out, the story goes that now Jackson's men are getting scared. They're beginning to leave the farm and they're begging him, "Can we leave? Can we leave the farm? Can we leave the farm? We need to go." And Jackson insisted on staying. He's like, "We're staying. I want to know like if who." She said that there's a fraud in the company. I want to know who the hell it is. Well, the men eventually like went outside to sleep in their tents, and some of them are still continuously begging him to leave. Like they're like, "That fuck no, fuck that, let's go. We need to go." What what happened next isn't clear, even if this is clear. But
Right, right.
the story goes that Jackson and his entourage were leaving the next morning to go back to Nashville, and they didn't stay and wait for the Bell Witch to tell him who the fraud was. They just woke up that next morning and were like gone. I'm like, okay, seems legitimate.
Right. That doesn't seem sus at all.
No, it's fine. Uh,
So with this, I just want to timeline. So it all started 1817. All this stuff that we just talked about was between 1818 and 1819.
mhm. Sí, señorita.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cause what year did they move there? You said 1810?
1804.
1804. And they
Yeah.
didn't start experiencing anything until 1817.
Right. And that's
Hmm.
exactly why I was like, what happened at this time for all of this to happen, right? Like what in the story, what was going on? And those were so we're talking like, I think he got removed from, at the same time, so he's acquired all the land, right?
Yep.
His daughter's coming of age. Um, he gets kicked out of the church at some point, and he has multiple land disputes. So you can see how things are starting to escalate for
Yeah.
him. So then, if he's coming home, and granted, this is speculation, this is my own opinion, is that if he is under all the stress enough where he's out of the church, like that's how stressful it got, or whatever was deemed bad or wrong, the church was not supporting him on this decision. that he would go home and then his kids would be subject to all of this.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, because then what they had said next in this like thing I was reading, right, is that the disturbances after Jackson, they were kind of decreasing by then, but the entity continued to express disdain for John Bell, the
Right.
daddy-o,
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
like relentlessly was vowing to kill him. And Bell had been experiencing episodes of twitching in his face and difficulty swallowing for almost a year, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that just kept getting worse with time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do in reading that the twitching with the face and difficulty swallowing and like his decreasing health could have yes been the witch, but it also reminds me, and I wonder if somebody has looked into like him potentially having like a disease like ALS or something like that, where it's like you do start losing mobility in your body, you know? I was
Or a
just curious.
stroke or something. Yeah, too.
Yeah, stroke,
No,
something like that, because they didn't have that kind of knowledge then.
right. No, that's what I had found is like it could be, an actual ailment. Like, especially with all the
Yeah,
stress, it could be a stroke, it could be a nervous system thing, like the twitching, the paralysis, the strange illness inflict, all of that.
all of that. Yeah.
At the same time, before we move forward, Betsy's engagement is terminated during this time too.
I have that it wasn't terminated until 1821
Oh,
after he died.
oh, well,
But again, this is where it's game
right, right.
telephone man. Because like the
No, and
way
that's the thing.
what I couldn't find though is when their engagement started,
Yeah, that's not, I didn't see that either.
which I was really curious about like when that like around the time that started because I was like did it happen before he died? Did it happen after? Because they're I have that they're okay. So John Bell died. We'll get into this more, but just to like for me and Nicole to kind of go over this with you guys too, because obviously this is how we work things out. I have that John Bell died on the morning of December 20th, 1820,
That's
and
what I
that in
got.
April of 1821 is when Betsy Bell broke off her engagement to Joshua
All
Gardner.
right, so the exact dates of Betsy's engagement to Josh Gardner's aren't formally documented. Um, e-
Boo.
Engagements likely began around 1817,
Okay.
and the engagement ended around 1820 during the peak of the Bell Witch disturbances.
Mm,
Oh. And then eventually, Betsy married Richard Powell in 1824.
mm. Yeah, because what the again, this is from the website, but this isn't like there's so many documentaries and there's books and there's all these accounts. So like again, they could all be different because like what they had said is by fall of 1820, John Bell, the dad's health had declined to the point that it confined him in the house, where the entity continuously removed his shoes when he tried to walk, or like slapped his face when he was recovered from numerous seizures.
Hmm.
And that he died on December 20th of 1820 after slipping into a coma a day earlier. And then the weird part of that is that immediately after his death, his family had found a vial of a strange black liquid in the cupboard, and
Hmm.
John Jr. sprinkled 2 drops onto the cat's tongue, and the cat died. And the entity claimed that he gave him a big old dose of that the night before, which quote unquote fixed him. And she
Uh-huh.
would call John Bell Black Jack. Um,
Oh.
There was a thing I had found that had said that they think that because apparently he had thrown the vial into the um
Like the fire?
thingy fireplace. I'm like, what's the thing with the heat? You know, the thing with the heat. Wow. The thing you knew, you got
Words is
it.
hard. I got it. I
She
got it right
got it.
here.
She got it right there. I said, you know, the thing. Um, Apparently when you threw it in the fireplace, it exploded and it like made like this blue light. But I had saw somewhere, a scientist, I wish I would have kept this up or put it in here because apparently I did not.
Did not.
I did not. That it could have been, um, is it right here? Yes, arsenic. That they think it was arsenic because they didn't have like, they didn't have the knowledge to really know about it then. And that arsenic burns blue, and it would explain the colorful explosion
Okay.
when John Jr. threw the mysterious violin. Um, and that when she was talking about how it could be arsenic, she was talking about how John Bell's son talked about all these strange medical symptoms he was having, and a lot of them sounded very neurological to her as someone who knows things about like biochemistry and toxicology, and that if you
Mm.
look at neurological symptoms, those are often times caused by heavy metal poisoning. So she thinks that it was arsenic that was given to him, and that's what the family had been experiencing too, was like some mental form of arsenic toxins. And I'm like, it's
Well,
interesting.
yeah. Right. I mean, that's what they talk about the Salem witch trial too, is that some sort of like their food in the wintertime got moldy and they all were having these like
Oh yeah,
fits and hallucinations because of that, right?
I
Like,
forgot about that.
yeah.
I forgot about that. But if you left turn for one quick second, little roundabout, if you watch American Story Coven, that's not how it happened. I'm just saying. I started watching Coven, and in the first episode last night, she said the Salem witch trials, they didn't get the real witches. They got out of Dodge.
Yeah, they did.
I said, I love this show.
They got out of Dodge. That is a good show. God, I love those guys.
Oh, me too. Um, so the entity was kind of non-existent after John's Bell demise,
Oh
as though
wait,
it had
I have to
like,
say something.
oh, go ahead.
So apparently, after he died, the spirit was laughing at his funeral and singing and like sang during his funeral. And then after that, the spirit was like, I'm gonna leave. This is 1821. I'm gonna leave and I'll return in 7 years.
Yeah.
Did you get that too? Okay.
So I have that in 1821, that's when Betsy Bell had broken off her engagement, and that's when the entity visited John Bell's widow, Lucy Bell, and told her it was leaving and would return in 7 years.
Now, the one thing we haven't mentioned at this far is that the entity at this point was starting to call herself Kate, which was interesting
Oh.
because the brother-in-law of who John was having the dispute with, his sister was named Kate as well. I think, let me see if I have their last names.
Well.
I don't. Oh wait, Kate Bates. Kate Bates. So the I don't know what the other guy's her brother-in-law was, but I they were having the dispute. So then this entity was calling herself Kate, which is interesting.
I remember that in the documentary, and I forgot about that. But
Hmm.
I didn't know that that was,
But Kate really liked Lucy Bell, and they would often have like discussions, and she would bring her like flowers or gifts or all this stuff. Like they were really chummy, if we will.
yeah, yeah, that's interesting.
Hmm.
It also makes me question the mom because
The
your
poison,
husband,
the
yeah, and
poison questions. Yeah.
when you're like your husband's the one that's sick and the one that this entity is continually going after, and like your daughter who was engaged to somebody that maybe you didn't prefer, even though you approved the engagement, because that's how it went back then. You had to approve it.
Well, you're a woman.
Well, that's also true. Your mom doesn't really, yeah, you didn't really get a say in that, just fair.
You would just
The
have to,
dad
or
did.
else he would like beat you. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if she opposed the engagement,
It was his word. He got to say.
yeah, she would be, even if she was
Hmm.
like, no, I don't want that marriage for her, he would be like, tough titties. Like, I rule the roost. Like,
Yeah,
And
like we're getting land from that or something, you know?
well, that might have been it because we know fair well that women were used as pawns, and to get more land, I would bet if we went into the history books on what Josh Gardner, because we don't know what he did, we don't know what his dad did, we have no idea. So, like, if he had a bunch of land, I'm wondering if, like, that was the contractual marriage thing, is that
Hmm.
they would get that in the marriage, right?
Right.
That's an interesting side note.
Yeah, it's a definitely an interesting thought because like maybe the mom had something to do with it. Also them moving there and then having three more kids while there, and then it didn't start right when they moved there, 1804.
Yeah, 1804.
It took until 1817 is when they started experiencing things. That's a buildup.
Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting.
it is
And they're all
interesting.
fucking chummy and like, haha, chi chi. And then the
Uh-huh.
dad's like, yeah, I'm getting tortured, but it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
I like it.
Um, Next I have that the entity returned in 1828, true to its word, 7 years.
Mm-hmm,
And it's
mm-hmm,
centered around John Bell Jr., with whom the entity would have discussed things about the origin of life and civilization and Christianity and the need for a major spiritual awakening,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
which I find super interesting.
mm-hmm.
And they said that the entity left again after 3 weeks, promising to visit John Bell's most direct descendant in 107 years.
Right, right. But they had
Um,
there's no documentation of her ever coming back, right?
yeah, because they said that the year would be that would make the year 1935, and the closest living direct descendant at the time was a Nashville physician named Dr. Charles Bailey Bell. He was a neurologist and John Bell Sr.'s great grandson. And in 1934, that same Dr. Bell published a book about the Bell Witch, and the book contains the first ever account of the alleged conferences between the entity and John Bell Jr.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know if they have ever really, if she did come back, because maybe she did and like we weren't the it wasn't there wasn't awareness enough, or being able to hear and see and like look for something then, because times are changing. But they do say that still, like when you go, you can hear like faint sounds of people talking and children
Mm-hmm.
playing can be heard in the area, and it's not uncommon to see candlelights dancing through the fields at night. There also has been photos taken that show mist and orbs of light and other phenomena. And what I really don't feel like we're keeping in mind with this too is all these hearing people, hearing children talking. If this place is already heightened, there was slaves, a lot of slaves that probably died on these lands that
Mm-hmm.
had
Mm-hmm.
it had to have been a huge amount. Again, 3,200 or 328 acres is 14 and a half football fields. It was a plantation. There had to be plantations around, and like there had to have been, there's probably a ton of energy there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Seeing candlelights dancing, hearing people talking.
All right. Okay. So this is my angle. I'm gonna bust this case wide open. Okay, from the very first time that we watched the documentary, I was like, this is magic. This isn't an entity, this is magic. Um, at the same time the noises and tapping started, things were happening to the Bell family, the land disputes, legal troubles. John Bell was excommunicated from the Baptist church, allegedly improper land dealings involving these land disputes. And so the brother-in-law's name was Benjamin. So that was, and I wonder if we should like look into what like Benjamin had, what was his dispute, because it never goes on these, it just focuses on John
Hmm.
and it never makes him look bad. Even with the land disputes, they gloss over it, like, because it's all about the witch, right?
Right.
But what are you doing to like my questions are always starting to like steer towards like if you're in a haunting and your house is haunted, what are you doing?
Right.
Like if something bad happened to you, you I not all the time, right? There are victims, right? But like what are you doing? What are you doing to almost like you're doing something bad and you're being punished outright is right
Hmm.
is sometimes what I think. And this is all opinion and what I theory. So um so there was significant um tension and social stress, especially with the Baptist church and that being a major center of rural life. Like we have to realize also that this was it. Like they didn't have like grocery stores or like this was little. It was like not a lot of people, not a lot of distraction, right? At the same time, when the stuff started coming out about the witch being there at the house, when it finally came out with the neighbors coming over and experiencing it too, now we're starting to feed it from like everybody coming over, and it was a big spectacle. And like, um, there were even talks about later about how they like she would prove herself to the preacher that had came over and tried to exorcise out of the house, and she would have discussions with the preacher and
Mm.
like actual like biblical philosophy kind of like religious scripture talks with the preacher and stuff. Um and she would tell secrets and stuff like about him, and so she
Mm.
even knew things that were not actually known, and so it was very interesting. So then I started because um at the same time, you have Betsy Bell, who is being taught by Richard Powell, who is her teacher, and probably about, let's see here, he's 28, she's 12, so 10, 3, 6, 7, almost 17 to her senior to her, right? So he's at least 17 years older than her, right? Which in today's fashion, it would be not trendy, right? But like back then, you did do that because, a lot of people were poor and older men could take care of women that are basically easier to control because they're not grown yet. They don't know anything. And they can have babies at this time. So then they could stay home and they would just play with the babies, and that's what they would do, right? They weren't educated. They were used as breeders. So we can see how like and sometimes you would have to do this because you can't feed this mouth, right? Like this is another person that you have to clothe and feed, and like stuff was expensive. So like I get like, we get why this was kind of happening at the same time. Not that it was right. And so at the same time, this is when Betsy started being courted by Josh Gardner, who was about her same age, right? But the spirit strongly opposed against this union and often spoke it,
Hmm.
was often very against it, and would torment Josh Gardner too. Um, so in real life, this created family conflict, unease, and suggested that the family member Richard Powell, Betsy's teacher, who eventually became her husband, may have disapproved in all of this as well, obviously, right? Because that's what his main goal. So my question was that opened all this up is that okay, he's educated. Is he into the occult? Is he into esoteric? So it was suggested that he was into supernatural stuff and he could have been a Freemason. He could have been a into ritual magic, which all of this points to yes, but again, we don't know, right? Those were secret societies, and I don't know how we would actually find, I guess if we could find his name into a into one of those orders, if we were
Mhm.
so privy to that information, that would be a stronger thing. So I
Yeah.
believe that at this time he started to make an egregore because what supports my belief in this is because spirits don't necessarily evolve. They either stay the same way. It's not like they learn new tricks. It's not like they start off as like scratching and then all of a sudden they're doing philosophy,
Right.
right? Like they don't have that kind of range per se. And then even the poltergeist side is that even with poltergeist, they start out noisy and bangy and stuff will move, but they also don't evolve. They don't start off with like moving and making noises and then all of a sudden having discussions.
Having intellectual conversations.
Right, voices out loud. Like they don't have that kind of range. They don't have that kind of like evolution.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so I believe at this time that's what started happening. So then when you were talking about how, like, was it Kate or was it Belle or Lucy? I believe, or what was coming to me is the fact that the ghost or the witch was talking to Lucy and maybe even moving Lucy into, because we have no idea what the capabilities of an egregore that's been untethered or because eventually, theoretically, you create this baby, this thought form, this egregore, and then it starts to like, as we see it progress through the Bell Witch, it's like a perfect example of like it started out as a baby, and then all it could do was knock on wood, and then it started to whisper, and then it said one word, and then it said, it would move bigger items, it would be bigger noises, it would also then have full sentences, and then it named itself.
Hmm.
Right. So this evolution that we go through on this whole story, at some point, I think maybe when it named itself, because that would be, you would be your own creature at that point. The tether between you and your master would have been severed, and you would be your own, like Frankenstein, right? Like you would be your own entity. You would be your own to do what you will, because your will would be your own. So you wouldn't have any of those rules or regulations. And I was reading that the fact that, you know, if she was made from Powell, who was well educated and well versed, so he probably had psychological or philosophy, philosophical,
Philosophical.
yes,
Hmm.
philosophical conversations about life and death and religion and spirituality and all that kind of stuff. She too would attain that kind of quality because she is a creature or child of him, right? So
Hmm.
she would retain some of his qualities and become much more of this type of entity. Um, Even to this day, the fact that she like left and she probably came back and she probably like looked at something and made a decision of like, I'm not going to interact or it's not worth my time. And I do believe that she probably just retreated in a cave. And maybe that's like um the way she gets fed
Yeah.
to stay. instead of like, and she probably has a choice of whether she wants to disappear into the ether and be dismayed
Hmm.
or dismayed, unraveled, or she stays and kind of sees what happens with like culture in the world, especially if the last thing that we know about her is she was talking about the universe and she was talking. I like these are things that like Hermeticists and um the Golden Dawn and what was the other one? Freemasonry. Like these are philosophies that they talk about and they talk about the universe and how it works and how it's woven in and how the laws are and all that kind of stuff. So it
Hmm.
just seems very likely that if all of this is true, I believe that she's resting in this cave, getting fed by tourists,
Valid.
waiting for uh, something beyond that I can think of, right? Like,
Right.
so that's my theory. That's my story about how I feel about the Bell Witch. Like, because I'll tell you what, the experiences that I had after we watched that first documentary at Rocky's house, like, I saw her in my rituals.
Hmm.
Just as a black figure covered in a veil, like nothing. And of course, at that time, it totally scared me, right? But like, because I was like, oh God, she's scary. But like, now that I understand more, now that I kind of like, in my own theory, my own workings on it, and like getting more and more information about it, like, um, she's not as scary. Like, yes, you may find some disturbance because you like stole a rock from a cave, but you're an asshole. So like, right?
Yeah.
So like, it's stuff like that, right? Like, so that's my take.
I think it's a good take. There's a lot of theories out there, and I think that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
ones that I think is the most believable.
Mm-hmm. It just seems so weird that like no other ghost has evolved that I know of, right? Like there could be obviously like I still feel like I'm very new in my research. So like,
Yeah,
right?
fair.
Like,
But we do know that, we did an episode on egregores in season 2, which you guys can go and listen to more if you want more information on that. But we do know they can evolve. They go through tantrums just like, I mean, it's literally human energy. It's our
mhm,
energy that creates them. So, of course, they're going to go through tantrums and teenage areas and like then keep evolving depending on how much energy they keep receiving, right?
right.
So, it's like,
Well,
it's,
technically that's her job. Her job was to not only like whatever, because I still have lots of questions about John Bell.
Mhm.
You're excommunicated from a church? Like that's a big deal back then. Like now it would be no big deal, right? Like
As
fuck
an
the church, right?
elder
Like
of the church.
right. That's huge that the church
Yes,
didn't back you.
right.
And we know that there's corruptions in the church. We know that like they don't always play for the good guys. Like, but that the fact that whatever you did got you excommunicated and all we have in history is the fact that you had some land disputes.
Right. Right.
I have questions.
Yeah. I have lots of questions too.
Right.
Because I still do think that there could be a case made about Lucy Bell. Like, were you lonely? Were you mad your husband's selling your daughter off essentially? Like he moved you. You have all this stuff. Like he
Hmm.
probably cares more about getting his land than he does about you. Like what were you doing? I have questions about you.
Yeah, well, because that's the thing is like, okay, what? And she could have been sitting there and like forming a an egregore like by herself and not knowing.
And not even knowing.
Right. And then feeding it and all that kind of stuff. Um, there's lots of holes because like again, I would want to know about Josh Gardner. I would want to know more about Benjamin what's his name? Bates. and why Kate was so upset about this. What was that thing? Why was he excommunicated from the church? These are the questions that we really need to spread out. We're only focusing on John
Yeah.
and the witch, basically. But the fact that the witch was super nice to Lucy, like, why?
Hmm.
Was she slowly poisoning him at that point?
Right. That's my other thing. Is like, then the witch is like, I've been giving that to him. So is that Lucy? Did Lucy poison her husband? Which in turn is like giving some like talk like, poisoning to the kids? Like what's going on here?
Yeah, like the thing is none of the kids died though.
No, that's right. But that whatever she was talking about how like John Bell Jr. had been experiencing like symptoms of what looked like arsenic poisoning,
Hmm.
like the neurological stuff that goes with it. And so I'm like, did you accidentally like that's where
Like
my questions come in of like, did you
contaminate,
accidentally like, yeah, did you like give like didn't
contaminate.
mean to, but you did, and like
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting, right? Like it's way interesting.
Yeah, I have questions, lots of questions.
I have all the questions. Yeah, it's fascinating because I'm like, okay, so like there's holes in the story
Yeah.
that we really have to like look into and see if there's something else that we can get. But being a real community, it's either been burnt, hidden. Like it would be great. And I know the original house has like been since torn down, right? But it'd be
Mhm.
great to like find a hidden journal or a document or like some sort of like, I don't know, scrap of like even if Benjamin was the one who like wrote down these are all the things that happened. Or like Kate had to have something. She was pissed, like
Yeah,
so much
100%.
so that the entity named herself after Kate.
Right. I agree with that.
Like that's wild, right? Like so yeah, maybe we need to go down to Adams, Tennessee and do some research.
Little EVPs. I do love a good ghost adventure.
Well, you know it's only about 6 hours, maybe seven.
True.
We could get there less than a day.
That's true. I feel like it would be really cool, especially if they do ghosted. Like, you know how at Eloise they're doing the ghost tours?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the actual like you go in, not like ghost tours like you think like New Orleans, by the way, you guys. It's like you actually go in, they have stuff and they have somebody that does this a lot. So then they'll like talk to
Mhm.
the ghost and they try to get you to experience something so you can see something or anything. It'd be cool if they had something like that there.
I think they do.
That'd be cool.
I mean, I don't know if it was, like I said, I saw it on, you can go in the cave and they reconstructed the house. I think it's like next to the cave or whatever.
Hmm.
And they open it up. You know, it's a tourist thing. So, of course, like they did all this, right?
Heck yeah.
I don't know if you can, we'd have to look on the internet and see if we can actually get like, do an EVP session at night in like the house or in the cave. I don't know if it was just special for the people because it was Zach and Colby
Hmm.
who went in and their crew. And they went in both the house and did EVP session and did all that stuff, right? And lots of like knocks and noises and um REM pod action. I don't know if they
Interesting.
actually I don't know if they actually got any. I think they got a voice, but I can't remember what was said.
Hmm.
So yeah, like they. So I don't know. We could do some things, is what I'm saying.
That'd be cool. I very much enjoyed our last one, which was Eloise. Very, very
Uh,
much.
yeah, Eloise is nice. And it was another thing that was super scary. And I'm mad that I was scared about it. And I want to do it again.
I definitely want to do it again. I'm not mad I was scared because, like, I mean, come on, we've been in some haunted houses, but we ain't never been in something that haunted. Well, kinda. Dude, Andrew Jackson was very fucking haunted, but it was different in the
Well,
way of like
even
we had control of the lights and that alone for some
that's
reason.
fair. That's fair. But like the last time we were in New Orleans, the before that, the first time we were in New Orleans for Bella's wedding, that night was super haunted in our room.
There was literally a water bottle that got picked up, crunched, and thrown across the room. And I literally thought Nicole, we always sleep in a king bed. You guys know this. You guys know us. Anyways, Nicole's on the other side. Trin's always in the middle, and I'm on one side. Literally, I thought Nicole chugged water, crunched the bottle, and chucked it across the room. And I turned, she's dead asleep, has no recollection at all. And I'm like, it's fine. I'm just gonna try to go back to sleep after that. I feel like the more that I experience things, the less scary they get. But you also put me in a haunted asylum with the lights off and it's cold, and we're
But
seeing things left and right. I don't know. That was a little bit
well, and what I've gotten to at this point, because like even the fact of like being in the water and all that kind of stuff, like when we saw the nurse sharks, I literally had to tell myself, because they were like, oh, you can swim around in this lagoon after we fed these nurse sharks and had them on our lap, right? And nurse sharks are like puppies, but still like sharks,
still
like
sharks. Yeah, I
still
feel that.
sharks, right? And wild animals. But I looked at the situation and was like, all right, if they let 7-year-olds like swim around, the safety level is like pretty safe.
Pretty safe. Yeah.
Right, right. It's not like they were like, no, no, you can't do it, but you could go in. It's like,
Right.
no, no, they were letting these kids just play in the water and like,
They're like, yeah, it's fine.
yeah.
You're like, I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't seem fine. They're like, no, it's like it's literally fine.
Well, and that's the thing. So then I went over to like this dark, deeper part of the water. Like I never dove down because again, I wanted to be respectful to the facility and the sharks, right? Like I didn't want to like go down and like I didn't know if I was allowed to do that and I didn't know if it would offend anything or anybody. Like but I swam like a snorkeler around the top of this like scary little overgrown like part where the deeper water was. Like
Mm.
and was less scared because I already had the experience of the other stuff, right? Like
Yep.
I'm like, okay, if they got these babies in here, like
We're fine.
we're pretty safe.
It's like you're like talking to yourself. You're like, man, the fuck up. You're fine.
Yeah, yeah,
You're fine. You're a grown ass woman. You could do this shit. You've already fed them. What do
yeah.
you?
What do you?
Anything was going to happen? It was going to happen while they're getting fed.
They literally are trained like puppies to like eat on this certain platform. Like they trained these sharks.
Mm,
I was like mind blown because not that I don't think they're intelligent, but like, and I get that they're food driven, but like,
smart enough to know that.
right. Like, oh, they won't bite you because they only feed on this platform. We only feed them on this platform. And I was like, wow.
That's it. It's a good example of like fear's a mind killer, man. They say it, and I know
It
it's woo woo it's
is.
gross, but you know
Right.
what? It's also not. When you let all that other bullshit of it being gross go, it's really not. It's true. Like I was terrified to go into Eloise, but at the same time, I got there and I'm like, I'm actually really not scared. I've already done the haunted house. The haunted house was cool as shit. So I was like, I'm really excited to see like all the other stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. Was I the one going to be walking down the hallway by myself? No, no,
Scary. It's scary.
not me. Yeah, exactly. But like,
Right.
am I going to be the one standing there staring without blinking so I don't miss anything? Yeah, 100%. am I kind of excited if I get scratched? That means like, I don't know, I got another experience. Yeah, is it it's gonna be scary? Fuck yeah, but like I'm
Right.
okay with it. It was like it was really cool and I'm glad we did it and like I'm excited to go again because I'm gonna be a lot more comfortable. And now I
Right,
understand
right.
why the other people there are so comfortable. Like they're comfortable because they do this all the fucking time.
Well, and that was the other thing. Like, if you realize that that woman walked down the dark, like it was no big deal, and came back like it was no big deal, it's like, all right, if she's that comfortable, I can be that comfortable. Like, that sets the bar, right? Like,
Yeah.
she works here. She knows the ins and outs. She knows what's dangerous. She knows what's not dangerous. Plus, I also believe don't be an asshole. Don't be a dick, right?
Yes.
Be respectful.
Well, and like she was telling them too, like the one that was at the top floor or something where all the guys were, and it wasn't that they were hurting women, it was that they were hurting disrespectful men. She was like, "Don't be disrespectful.
Right,
Don't say
right.
anything when we get up there that would be taken disrespectfully. Men have been scratched, they have left with handprints, they've been pushed, like all this stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, like you said, just don't be a dick. It's not that hard."
Yeah, it's not that hard. Like, and that's the thing is that, like, if it's open to the public, like, yes, stuff can happen, right? We all know that stuff can happen. But 9 times out of 10, it's not going to happen because it's open to the public. And if it happened all the time, if the people got hurt all the time, they would have to close it. They would have to do something about it,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So those are the things. And we all know science experiment, even at Eloise, the only people that got hurt or something happened to them were the ones that were provoking, the ones that were being disrespectful, the ones that were saying things that, like, even when we were up in the bathroom and that doctor that was disrespectful or whatever, he was just verbally, like, he said cuss words.
He was actually really fucking funny. Even she was like, we argue like a
Right.
husband and wife.
Right, right. It's not even that bad.
No, it was funny.
Right. So it's almost like they're playing this like okay, I'll play your villain, let me do it. Like,
Hmm.
right? And cuz like even like having like nobody got seriously injured, nobody got hurt, nobody he didn't leave there and come haunt our house. Like it's like, yeah, I think this is fun. Let's scare some people. Like,
Yeah, I can't wait to go ghost hunting again.
well, it's getting warmer, so we should do it.
So much fun.
I kind of really want to go down to Tennessee now. Come on,
Fair.
you want to go with me?
I mean, yeah, if it works out, then yes, absolutely. The last something that happened for me this year is I have been allowing myself to like not do all of the things. Like last year, I had a trip a month for a while there and it tripped me out for a while. And I'm like,
Hmm.
it's been feeling really good, but it also feels very weird to not be going on a trip at least every other month or something. You know, I was like, dang, it feels really weird. I
Hmm.
was so used to having so much to do, and I'm like, wow, I don't have a trip planned. That's weird.
Well, because the thing is we don't have to do a big amount of time because it's really research and like we have a purpose and like, so it's not something that we would have to like, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I don't care, like whatever. But like, I think it'd be interesting just to like expand. Like I said, I literally have just wrote down, which I'm going to start researching, is I want to look at Benjamin if they have anything on that, on Kate, on Lucy, on like the church, if there's anything in the church, like records, like the church had to have records, right? Like,
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it was a Baptist church, so I don't really know how Baptist church works comparatively to like ones like Catholic churches. I feel like usually keep a
right,
lot of stuff, but
right.
granted, they're the ones out going and doing exorcisms, though. So, I mean, I don't know, like, did Baptist church do that? Do you know what I mean? Questions.
Right, right. There's quite like there's a lot of questions because there's questions that we don't even know to ask at this point because we don't know what we don't know. Like, and that's the thing is like if we really want to expand on this a little bit further and get deeper into it, and hopefully the witch helps us with that, like it would be kind of cool just to kind of see what we could uncover.
Right.
Hmm.
Heck yeah.
We could make a whole show out of it.
Could. Could make a YouTube video at least
Hmm.
for the
Hmm.
YouTubes,
Hmm.
the YouTubers. Could do that. That'd be cool.
Right.
Well, in our next one, we're talking about the Winchester House in Cali. I am going into this one blind.
Wild. It's wild. So, just a little bit on it is that the Winchester was the one who made the gun. That's this family made the Winchester
Oh.
gun. So, the and they had a happy little family, and then all of a sudden, like they bought this house, or no, they had her daughter, and her daughter had some sort of rare disease, and she passed away, and then not long after that, the husband passed away. Well, then the wife either wanted to contact the dead or was into spirituality. So then she started um, talking to a psychic medium. Um, and they told her that because of the gun and because it had killed all these people, that the spirits were coming back at her and that she had to do certain things. And that's how the house became.
I'm excited. This
There is a movie too.
is also no nothing to nothing because like I don't care one way or the other, but like I'm not like really into guns, and so I don't really know like names of guns. So like I'm sure Winchester is the household name, obviously, because it's probably been around
One
forever.
of them. It's one of them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm like I would have not put those two and two together. So like I'm
Mhm.
excited because like I love when I know nothing about it. And like even that's like probably beep tiny. So I'm like excited to research that one and like learn about something I don't know about. Weird. Something I don't know about. How bizarre.
How bizarre. Here we go. It's kind of nice not to know about it, right?
Yeah, it kind of is. Because
It's kind of new.
God, you guys, we've done so much research and we like, oh, yeah, I mean, almost every topic we have on this year, we have on here this year, I know something about like even the demons of the Goetia. I know what that is. I know what the nine levels of purgatory are. I can't tell you, specifically, but like,
Right.
I know almost everything about this. There's only a couple this year that I'm like, I really just don't know a lot about it. That's one being the Winchester house that we're talking about in the next one. And then my other one is Atlantis. Hear about Atlantis. Don't know what the
Uh,
fuck it really is other than the Disney movie.
Other than the Disney movie, I
That's
have
what,
no idea. Like,
that's what I've got for you. I purposely have not watched The Secret of Water because we're doing that at the end of the year, and I want to go into that with the same eyes I'm going into the Winchester house with is like, I need to know what this is. I don't know what this
yeah,
is, but
yeah, yeah.
also being in the world we live in, we know a lot of like haunted places and spooky stuff, like haunted items and like we have a pretty, I'd say, pretty good range of things that we know about.
I mean, I feel pretty well versed in the occult world, right? Like, I've watched a
Yes.
lot of like ghost shows and stuff like that, but like even to the point of now when we watch ghost shows, like, oh, that house seems familiar. So now even in my ghost shows, I'm starting to be like, oh, I've been here before. Like, I know about
Mm.
this house or this asylum or whatever, right?
Yeah. I kind of love that because it's like the knowledge shows. Like, you might not like randomly just be sitting here thinking about your knowledge, but then something like that, something
Yeah.
like that happens and you're like, fuck, I've heard about that. I know what
Uh-huh.
that is. Or like
Uh-huh.
I've learned about that. Like, can I give you specific details? Maybe this year we will be able to more because we've been able to spend more time researching things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like
I
how,
lo We need to put that on a shirt. I know you're not just sitting around thinking randomly about your knowledge.
yeah, literally. Sometimes it takes something happening for me to realize that, holy fuck, like
I
I've
know
learned a
things.
lot. I know things.
Yeah,
Like,
I
yeah,
know
yeah,
things.
I know
Yeah.
things. How funny.
No, it's really cool. Um, it's cool too because like I had this girl pop out into my life. She wanted a haircut. I didn't have time for her the when she popped in, but then I just blocked some space off, told her exactly what and she showed up. Like I didn't get her phone number. I got her name for just her first name. That was it. And I was like, well, she'll either be here or she won't, right?
Hmm.
She walked in and we did a haircut and I curled her hair. And like it was the most open and honest conversation I had in a long time with a person when I just met them.
Yeah.
And it was really nice. And we talked about everything like Jesus. We talked about witchcraft. We talked about like kids. We talked about
Mhm.
like whether it was controversy, whether it wasn't controversy, the state of the world, like all of it, right? Like it was super cool.
I love when that happens when you get somebody that just like aligns right in and it's like, ah, this is nice. We can
Oh
talk about
yeah.
the weird shit.
Yeah, just right at the bat. Cause I'm like, listen, I'm tired of like hiding my noise. I'm tired of hiding uh my too muchness, my like all of that stuff. Like, and I don't want to be brash and like uh hard or anything like that. Like, I'm not trying to like steal other power away. I just want to like stand on my own 2 feet.
Yeah, be authentically you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really think that that's what this year is all about, is really just kind of standing behind a cat and having her purr in the mic.
We can't hear her purring, but
Oh,
also like
okay.
we could pretend that it's her talking.
Right. I'm, this is my shape shifting.
Yeah, it's your Professor McGonagall, and you are now a cat sitting on a desk talking into a mic. See? Look at that. It's magic.
Right. She's magic. Magic.
Our
This is
episode
Moose.
today is very heavily
Cat laden.
cat friendly.
Cat cat
I
laden.
She's been staring into the camera for a very long time and he has
I
been
know.
aggressively rubbing against me.
Yes, he has. I watched him throw his head back.
I'm like, oh my God. She says, and she's been getting herself right up in there into the mic and said, it's my turn to talk.
I know, big eyed, with those
Right.
big eyes just stare. I'm like, oh my God, my soul.
Yeah,
Ugh.
right. I'm
Don't
like,
stand on
good
the
Lord.
computer though. Don't stand on the computer, fucker.
Well, my friend, do you have anything else for the peoples?
Good Lord, no. I have. That's all. I've spent it.
I know, right? This is very early for us. I would like to say it's coming out the same day we record. That's how we do it now. Makes it easier. Uh,
Absolutely.
we will
Absolutely.
be giving another episode out next week. Obviously, you guys had a time period there because so did we. So, we appreciate the support and the love still because it's really cool to have
Absolutely.
people like giving us the okay to not be perfect
I like it.
because we don't give ourselves that. So,
And if you guys have any topic that you have found on the internet that you want us to like delve into, give us a shout out because it'll be interesting to see what you guys want to hear and what you guys want to like research and along with us or have us even just look at would be great. Like,
yeah.
I think that would be really cool. So if you want to reach out to us, that would be great. However, we're on socials. We're on, um, you could just email me. Would you put at least my email in the, if not yours too?
Yeah, but I think the Heathens ones is in
Yeah,
the thingy.
and I've been watching that one too. So whatever, like however you want. And we're on Instagram and stuff like that. So
And Nicole's really good at watching that stuff.
yeah, I try to be.
You're
Um,
great at it. Way better. I am not. I am not.
Facebook too. I'm on Facebook, so which is good. What else am I on?
I'll put that all in the show notes.
Okay, okay. That'll
I'll
be
put
cool.
Nicole's like stuff in there too for you guys just in case, you know. She's really good at responding.
No, it'd be cool to see what you guys want us to do and what us to look at and see.
Like, yeah, agreed.
Agreed.
That'd be interesting. Well,
Time
hope
to
you
go.
hope you guys have a good week. And yeah, see you guys in the next episode.